I wasn't invited to Mom's birthday. Then my sister's boyfriend stood up and said, "You're the one she talks about." What happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The text came in at 9:42 a.m., just as I was tying the ribbon on a gift box I'd spent an hour assembling. The message was short, surgical, really. "Don't come to your mother's party. It's just for close family." I stared at the screen, numb. It was as if someone had reached into my chest and twisted something soft until it crumpled. I read it again, then again, as if, with enough passes, the words might soften or at least explain themselves. But they didn't. It was Mom's 60th. I knew how much she'd been looking forward to it. She talked about the guest list back in spring, mentioned the cake flavors, the song she wanted playing when she walked in. For weeks, I debated what to get her, finally settling on her favorite truffles from that boutique shop downtown, the kind she used to buy for herself back when she still worked. The card was handwritten, folded neatly beneath the satin ribbon. I'd chosen my words carefully. Warm, personal, no blame, just love. But now, that gift sat in my passenger seat like a question I shouldn't have asked. I told myself I wouldn't cause a scene. I didn't even expect to see anyone, just planned to drop off the box, maybe take a quick glance at the house through the car window, then disappear before anyone knew I'd been there. A quiet gesture, a whisper of presence where my name had been erased. But the moment I turned the corner, it hit me. Balloons hovered in clusters along the fence like pastel sentries. A white tent arched over linen-draped tables. Laughter spilled onto the street. People in suits and dresses milled around the garden. My childhood home had become the backdrop to someone else's celebration, one I hadn't been deemed worthy of attending. And then I saw Ashley. Perfect posture, perfect smile, her arm linked with a man I didn't recognize. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. They had all been invited, all but me. I sat there, hands stiff on the steering wheel, watching a version of my family I hadn't seen in years unfold like a movie I wasn't cast in. My mother, laughing, actually laughing, like nothing had cracked between us, like she hadn't silently co-signed my absence. Her hand touched her chest as she reacted to someone's joke, her smile wide and easy in a way I barely remembered. That hurt more than the text. She looked alive, untouched by the jagged silence that had grown between us. I should have driven off. I had done what I came for. The truffles sat on the passenger seat, wrapped and waiting, but something in my chest had hollowed so completely it felt dangerous to carry it away. That's when Ashley appeared, like she'd sensed the imbalance in the air. She stepped out onto the driveway in a soft peach dress, heels clicking against the pavement, wine glass tilted carelessly in one hand. She spotted me instantly and paused just long enough to communicate indifference. "Oh," she said, with a shrug like I was a weather report she'd already predicted. "I told Dad you might show up." That was it. No anger, no guilt. Just that lazy, condescending certainty that they'd won something, and I was the intruder. Whatever restraint I'd been gripping slipped. I got out of the car. With every step toward the house, the laughter dimmed. Conversations faltered, heads turned. By the time I crossed the threshold into the backyard, it felt like I'd torn open the canvas of their perfect day. My father was the first to speak, his voice clipped and cold. "This is a private event. You weren't invited." I met his eyes, saw no regret, just control. I nodded slowly, turned to go. But before my feet could carry me back toward the gate, a voice I didn't recognize cut through the silence. "Wait," it said, low, firm, surprising. I turned. It was Ashley's boyfriend, dark blazer, serious face. He was staring right at me, "You're the one she talks about," he said. And just like that, every face turned again. Not to him, but to me. The outsider, the ghost in the family portrait, the one who wasn't supposed to matter. The words hung in the air like smoke, uncomfortable, impossible to ignore, and slow to clear. My mother's expression faltered. The smile she had worn only minutes earlier slipped from her face, replaced first by surprise, then by something raw and flickering beneath the surface. Her brows knit, her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Across the room, Ashley stiffened, her skin blanched, arms pulled tight across her chest like a child caught in a lie. And my father looked like someone had just pulled the floor out from under him. He blinked rapidly, mouth tightening in a way I recognized. Not confusion, control unraveling. Ashley's boyfriend didn't flinch. His voice wasn't dramatic, but it had weight. The kind of voice that only sounds louder because of what it dares to say. "She always talks about you," he repeated, taking one step forward, not toward anyone in particular, just forward, like the truth needed room. "Late at night, when the house is quiet and everyone's left, she told me about the time you fixed her router over FaceTime for 3 hours even though you had work the next morning. She said you were the only one who remembered what kind of cake she likes, that you left a slice on the porch every year, even after she stopped calling back." A breath hitched somewhere in the room. "I thought she was talking about someone she used to know," he added. "Someone she'd lost." Ashley's jaw clenched so tightly her cheek twitched. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. She knew. They all knew. The performance was done. And then, slowly, my mother stood. There wasn't a grand gesture. No speech. Just her eyes meeting mine, wet, wide, searching. She crossed the space between us, each step like a choice she hadn't made in years. And then her hand found mine, gently, carefully, like she was afraid I might pull away. "Come sit with me," she said. Just like that, the room's gravity shifted. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the forgotten child on the outside looking in. I was seen. There was no need for a scene, no shouting, no demands for explanations that would only shrink under the weight of denial. I didn't ask for my father to speak because his silence told me more than his voice ever could. He stayed seated, his eyes bouncing between plates, guests, the floor, anywhere but mine. A man who had spent years building walls of control now sat behind their crumbling edges, unarmed and small. Ashley lingered in the corner like a displaced ornament, out of place, out of step. Her arms folded so tightly across her chest, I thought they might fuse there. She kept glancing over, lips pressed thin, as if trying to puzzle together how everything had slipped from her grip in one afternoon. And me? I sat beside my mother. She held my hand for longer than necessary. Not for performance. There was none of that left in her. Just a quiet tether, as if touching me was a way to believe I was really there. We laughed, lightly, carefully at first, then fuller, freer, as though we were learning how to speak the same language again. Someone passed the cake and Mom handed me the first slice, smiling like she remembered every birthday I had spent leaving notes on the porch. That was when it started. A cousin leaned in to ask about my poetry, said she'd read something I'd posted last year. Then an aunt, curious about my YouTube channel. The shift was subtle but irreversible. People who had once looked through me now tilted toward me, wanting to know, to hear, to see. Ashley's boyfriend pulled up a chair beside mine. He didn't need to say much, just leaned in, voice low. "You're not what they said." I turned slightly, eyes steady. "No," I said. "I'm not." And with that, the need to prove myself, vanished. When I stood to leave, my mother rose too. She embraced me, tight, lingering. It wasn't apology. It was acknowledgement. Grief, love, all folded into the warmth of her arms. Because sometimes justice doesn't arrive in flames. Sometimes it walks in softly and sits down beside you